So I'm happy to present my very good friend Gayle Young. She graduated from Bradley University with a degree in history and secondary education. She taught for 8 years and then became a full-time mother and community volunteer. She began her volunteer work with Susan G. Komen in 2002 as a grants assistant, then grants chair, and eventually joined the board and served as a board chair. Gayle joined the Komen Memorial staff in 2008 as mission director with a focus on community outreach, grants, and education. In December of 2020, Gayle was named executive director of the Susan G. Komen Central Illinois Memorial. Gayle and her husband Craig have 2 married children, Daniel and Abigail. Their first grandchild, Adeline, born in August, and will welcome a second grandchild this spring. Gayle?
Thank you, Leah. Thank you for having me. I was here in 2018. A lot has changed since 2018 as we all worked through the pandemic together, and I'm sure for many of you in the business community, your lives changed due to the pandemic as well. Susan G. Komen as an organization went under a pretty significant change through the pandemic. In 2020, for those of you who are longtime Peorians, you know that Susie Komen was born and raised in Peoria. She is buried at Parkview Cemetery, and we are her hometown. I've always looked at Peoria as the heart of the Komen organization. The national headquarters has been in Dallas, Texas for many years, but Peoria is the heart. And as I walked in today, there were a couple of people that said they knew Susie. They actually went to school with Susie. And we get that a lot. Nowhere else in the country can claim that there are people that went to prom with Susie or, went to vice versa with Susie. One year she had a lot of prom dates. But anyway, she was a lovely, lovely woman who died of metastatic breast cancer at the age of 36. And for those of you who may already know the story, Komen was founded as a promise between Susie and her sister Nancy, that Nancy, who when she knew Susie was not going to survive, promised her that she would do everything she could to help end breast cancer so that other families did not go through what they had gone through, watching a young mother of 2 children die at the age of 36. And so Nancy Brinker dedicated her life to helping to end breast cancer. Have we ended breast cancer? We have not. And when we go back and we talk about it, we've always talked about for many years the cure. Well, we know so much more now, and we know that it is not going to be the cure. It's going to be many cures. And we've come a long way. If we go all the way back to when Susie died in the 80s, survival rates of early stage breast cancer were only about 70%. Now, an early stage breast cancer that's diagnosed stage 1, the 5-year survival rate is 99%. You can't do a whole lot better than that, but we still are losing about 145,000 people a year, and that includes men. There's a lot of men in this room. About 1% of breast cancers are in men. And for you men, I will tell you, you do not have as good outcomes as women because you're not thinking that that's even an option, that that's a possibility. And so many men end up waiting a lot longer than they should to go get any kind of diagnosis or treatment. So Komen, that is the history of Susan G. Komen. That is the Peoria history. For 38 years, aside from COVID, for 38 years we have come together Mother's Day weekend in support of that mission of a world without breast cancer. During COVID, some major changes came about through the organization. Prior to COVID, each affiliate in Susan G. Komen was an independent 501c3. And through COVID, when we realized that a lot of our affiliates across the country would not be able to have any events, everything was shut down. And when you are an organization that lives on events, your fundraising, your ability to pay your staff and to do your work is centered around events, and we had a 2-year shutdown of our country, it was a difficult time. And so there was a lot that went into looking at the organization and the structure. And through that structural change, we are now all part of one organization. And there were a lot of efficiencies that came from that. You know, every affiliate had a marketing person, every affiliate had finance people. Well, that has all been centralized. We each still have markets and we still have presence in our community, but a lot of those things became centralized, and it allowed us to be more efficient, and it allowed us to continue to do the work, focusing on what we could do in the community and not spending a lot of our time and our resources on paying for marketing and finance and those kinds of HR. My gosh, that scary thing, HR. So it is now, we are all now part of one organization. And through that, for those of you that have paid attention over the years, in fact, I'm looking at Alice when she walked up, I thought, I'm pretty sure that's Alice who came to many of our grants announcements and things over the years when she was here with HOI. And we used to do what were called community grants. And one of the things that we found through this consolidation was that we as an organization needed to find what we could do best. We could not be all things to all people, and we needed to find out what we could do best. And through that, we came up with 3 things. Number 1, Susan G. Komen is the largest funder of, if you know the answer, who said breast cancer research? Okay. Whichever of you said that, here is your little gift, and you can share that. I'm not sure you'll want to wear it, but you can share it.
I'll give it to somebody.
All right. Susan G. Komen is the largest funder of breast cancer research, and we have been for many, many years, over $1 billion. We're at about $1.12 billion that have gone into breast cancer research. And if we were to put up a list of the breakthroughs in breast cancer treatment, you can hardly come to one that Susan G. Komen as an organization did not play some part in. Whether it was we funded an early researcher. One of the things Komen has really worked on is their willingness to take a risk, take a chance on an early researcher, on a young researcher who may have incredible ideas, but may not have the backing of a large educational institution. And out of that, some amazing things have happened. And I don't know if we have any other than Leah, I don't know if we have any other breast cancer survivors in the room. But if you are, and you have ever had a breast MRI, the man that developed the breast MRI machine was a Komen scholar, received Komen grant dollars. If you've ever had genetic testing, the BRCA gene, that's kind of the one part of genetic testing that we all have heard of, is that one gene. The Dr. Mary Claire King, who along with Dr. Colton Jensen down at Vanderbilt University discovered that gene mutation, she was a Komen scholar. That was the thing that kind of opened, I've always kind of referred to it as the Rosetta Stone of genetics in breast cancer. That was kind of one of those really big breakthrough things. If you are on any kind of cancer treatment drug, Herceptin was developed by a Komen researcher. So you can kind of go all the way through from the diagnostic end of it to the oncology end of it, and Komen has played a role. So the largest funder of breast cancer research. The second thing that we figured out was that one of the keys to helping people successfully make it through a breast cancer diagnosis and treatment was financial help. You know, you think about it, if you put yourself out there and you think, okay, I have a cancer diagnosis, and this isn't just breast cancer, but I have a cancer diagnosis, and I need to do this and this and this. Oh, and by the way, I'm not working. My spouse is taking time away to take me to treatment. I have to get my kids covered because I'm so tired. I can't be there. And so Komen, the second thing that they're focusing on now is patient care services. The treatment assistance program that any woman with a breast cancer diagnosis who qualifies financially, 300% of the federal poverty level, which is still quite a bit of family income, can access the treatment assistance program. The other thing that we have found through that, talking about helping somebody make it through this continuum of care, is navigation. If you've ever been had a cancer diagnosis or another serious health diagnosis, you think about all the appointments, and you think about, you know, your doctor who has got so much going on is quickly throwing out all this information to you, all kinds of terms and things that you don't, that, okay, you just, most of the time you just sit there and shake your head. You know, navigation, the ability to have somebody help you, whether it's a navigator that is at the hospital, whether it's a navigator that helps you out with when you're doing your oncology treatment, breast cancer navigators. And in Peoria, we are incredibly fortunate, incredibly fortunate. Our health systems have designated breast cancer navigators. So many communities, that is not the case. And it is much more difficult to successfully get through that continuum of care if you don't have that help. And so Komen has started to do a lot of work in breast cancer navigation. One of the, actually, I would have to say, positives that came out of COVID, which I don't think we often think about any positives that came out of COVID, but telemedicine is one thing that really came much more to the forefront, I would say. We are much more willing to do those kinds of things now. You know, before, if your doctor would have said, hey, I'm going to get you on a Zoom call and we're going to, you know, like, what in the world? I'm not going to do that. Well, now we are more receptive to that. And so communities that do not have that navigator right there, Komen is connecting patients with a navigator that can help answer questions for them, that can help them get through that continuum of care. Is it somebody that's there when they're at their appointment? It is not. But it is somebody that when they have that question, I just walked out, I have no idea what this meant. You know, my doctor was busy, I got away and I thought, I don't even understand it. They can pick up and have someone to sit and talk with through and answer those kinds of questions. Kinds of things that will help women and men successfully make it through that continuum of care and get on the other side of a cancer diagnosis. So those are the things that Komen is focusing on. The other thing that we are doing a lot of work on is advocacy. And again, I'm going to say something that most of us don't think of very often. In Illinois, we are actually very fortunate in the area of women's health. For many of you that remember Governor Edgar's wife created the Office of Women's Health. And we are one of the only states in the nation that actually have a designated Office of Women's Health. And because of that, our legislators are a lot more in tune with what some of the needs are. And so Susan G. Komen and American Cancer have really led the way in legislation impacting cancer patients. And as I was saying, we don't often, you know, give Illinois a whole lot of credit, but we are one of the only states where we support the Illinois Breast and Cervical Cancer Program, which is the place that anyone can get a screening if you need it. In Illinois, that is not based on your income. If you are uninsured for whatever reason and you need a screening mammogram, you can get it. And we support that, but we also add additional dollars out of our general revenue line item, which is very unusual. That program is a match with the CDC. So you have to put in a certain amount of dollars to get those dollars from the CDC, which in Illinois is about $3.5 million to get 3.5 from the CDC. But Illinois puts in about $14 million. So we are fortunate in that respect. But Komen has led the way with a lot of legislation that made things easier for cancer patients, especially from a finance end. And one of the most recent things that we worked on was so through Affordable Care, a screening mammogram is one of the 10 preventative services. What we found was that women and men who needed to get a screening mammogram would get a screening mammogram, and that is covered, no copay, no deductible. But what we found was that people who got a callback, then that becomes a diagnostic mammogram or a more advanced level of screening, and that did have copays and deductibles. And so we had women having to choose to not go back when we knew that there was something that we wanted to look at. And you know what? Maybe it would not have been anything. We've all had a callback, and man, that is not a fun thing. But what if you didn't go back? And so we worked with the state, and Illinois has diagnostic coverage now, and that allows you to get through at least to that diagnosis end. And that was really a big deal, because we knew that we were losing people who dropped out because of a copay or deductible. When you're making decisions on whether you're going to pay your utility bill or you're going to go back for that mammogram that you have a copay and deductible for. So anyway, advocacy, breast cancer research, patient assistance, and advocacy. Those are the things that we are focusing on now. And I feel as a part of Komen for 20 years now, I feel very good about where we are going with how we have kind of narrowed our focus. I think we can be more impactful that way. And now, how can you help us do what we do? Leah came up and talked a little bit about our team, which is our team from Salem Lutheran Church. So if you want to be a Salem Lutheran saint, you can join our team. On the table, you will see there's information on the Peoria Walk. And I'm sure there are many of you in here over the years that participated in the Peoria Walk. We are working hard to grow that back after COVID. It's been a struggle, but we have doubled in numbers over the last 2 years. So we're hoping to get back and start regaining that momentum for that event. We have, it's kind of an interesting dilemma, because we have kind of moved to what we call peer-to-peer fundraising. So back in 2000, if you participated in the walk, the only way you could participate was to register and pay your registration fee. Well, now you can support somebody like Leah. You can make a donation, which means that you don't necessarily come out that morning, but you can still be a supporter. And so it looks a little bit different than it has in the past, but we're very hopeful that we're going to really start seeing our numbers tick up again, and that's how you could support us. You could support, start a team yourself, have a Rotary team. I don't know if that's ever a possibility, but would love to have a Rotary team where you work, a work team. This is my favorite thing to do, because before I became the executive director, I did mission. I did education, I did outreach. In fact, on March 18th, we have an education event with our Circle of Promise, which is our minority breast health advisory board. It's a group of African American women who about 12 years ago decided it was important to them to get the information about breast cancer into their community. And as I have learned a lot working with that group, the messengers are sometimes as important as the message. And so they said, we will take the message out. And every year for the last 12 years, we have had an education breakfast. This year, it's March 18th, we will have between 400 and 500 people that come to an education event, which is pretty unusual. But we have a keynote speaker who's going to talk on clinical trials. We have someone from Illinois Cancer Care, hopefully Dr. Leland Quister is going to be there to help us with that. But that's my passion. The mission has always been my passion. If you are part of a business where you would like to do a lunch and learn for your employees, there's a lot of information, a lot of conflicting information out there now. How old should I be when I get my first mammogram? Should I start at 35 and start getting it regularly at 40? Do I follow the United States Preventative Services Task Force that a few years ago said, no, don't start till 50 and go every other year? After, American Cancer Society said, well, why don't we start at 45? So it was all over the place. Komen has said, start at 40. Talk with your doctor. You make that decision. Don't let an outside organization make that decision for you. So anyway, if you would ever be interested in a lunch and learn, I would love to come and talk with your employees or an organization that you belong to. And so anyway, that is where we are in how you can join us, how you could help us, how you can make a donation to LEA. Always looking for volunteers. If you are somebody that would be interested in volunteering, you can grab me afterwards. I'd love to get information, and we can get you engaged with one of our committees for the walk and some of the other work that we do. So anyway, question? Sorry, Jason, I got ahead of you there.
Thank you for sharing all this great
Sure.
information. I wondered if you could give us a sense of how many people in your service area receive the financial assistance.
I could. I don't have that statistic in front of me. However, I will say last year we had a foundation designate a specific amount of money, $20,000, to use for financial assistance right here in Peoria. It was gone in less than 6 months. We did not make it through 6 months. I actually met with that foundation, and I came to them and I said, I want you to see where we are. And their donation was gone in less than 6 months. And when I showed them that, they said, well, wait, that's more people were treated than what our dollars covered. And I said, yeah, because Komen, the national program, doesn't let anybody go unserved. We had that designated for Peoria, and we used that first. But if somebody came along after that, they still received the financial assistance, which that's how it should be. That's how it should be. So. And I will tell you, requests for financial assistance are up 100% year over year. And I think that we can all look around and we know, as we're going to the grocery store and we're paying our utility bills, everybody is dealing with that inflation. And so the access to that program is just gone sky high.
I'm sorry, I don't know the year, but
Okay.
It's been 20 plus years ago. The number of us from this club volunteered and directed people in the walk. And it was when it was a women's walk and men were included. So it was an opportunity for us to participate. I'm hoping we'll be able to do that again.
That would be wonderful. You bring up one of those things that created quite a stir, because I noticed when we honored Susie, we talked about when we allowed women. Well, with Komen, it was when we allowed men that we created quite a stir. It was called 3 Miles of Men, and you lined University, and then when it came to men get breast cancer. It's not a lot, but 1% of all breast cancers are in men. And so it was determined that we could not leave men out because I'm one of those we love that Mother's Day weekend part of that, but men got breast cancer. So they can now walk But we still actually have men that kind of just stay on the sidelines, because I think they were probably from that same group years ago that's what you did. So, but would love to have anybody that is able to participate join us.
I want to reinforce what Gail said about men can get it too. My only family history was an uncle.
And if you have a male family member with breast cancer, that is definitely something that should make you be a lot more diligent in your screening, because that's unusual, and it's usually more aggressive breast cancer.
My grandfather also has it.
Yeah. And it's especially somebody your grandfather's age, we're not thinking breast cancer even isn't as a possibility.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much.